Your first step in making the map is to make a representative square for each block that you cut. So for example, if you cut 5 16 by 16 inch blocks, you need 5 squares that represent those 16 by 16 blocks.
There are two methods to lay out your quilt, a graph paper method and a computer method. The actual layout and design process is the same for both. Here's the setup for each method.
If you're using our pre-formatted document for TurboCAD, open the file up and then Save As and give it your own name. When you open up the TurboCAD pre-formatted document, this is what you will see. In TurboCAD, you will use your rubber stamp tool to duplicate your squares. Right-click on the square you want to duplicate, choose the rubber stamp tool, and then left-click for each square you need. So if you need 5 squares, left-click, move the cursor, and left-click again. Do this for all 5 squares, and then press Escape and then Delete. Continue copying and pasting or rubber stamping until you have one square that represents each block that you have cut. Always remember to save. Next, set the outside perimeters. Choose the tool to make a square block, and be sure to have the Snap to Grid turned on. Next, place your cursor so the crosshair mark is over the 0, 0 of the XY coordinates. Draw a box that is the size of your quilt. On the indicator information bar on the bottom of the window, you should be able to see the size of the block you are making. One option for mapping out your quilt is to use graph paper. Each block on your graph paper will equal 4 square inches on your quilt. For example, if you have a block that's 16 inches by 16 inches, you're going to make a representative block on your graph paper that is 4 blocks wide, 4 blocks down. So that equals your 16 by 16. If you have a 4 by 4, you get 1 block. Now if you have a lot of pieces of paper and this is too hard for you to use, you can double how many blocks you use. So instead of having a 4-inch block equal 1 block on your graph paper, you can double it. So your 16-inch block, 1, 2, 3, 4, has 8 squares on it. 16 by 16. And your 4 by 4 comes 4 blocks. So it depends on which is easier for you to use. So now you need to make 1 block on your graph paper for every block that you have in your quilt. So I have one 16 by 16 inch block. I'm going to make 1 block equals 4 inches. So my 16 by 16 is going to be 4 blocks across, 4 blocks down. 16 by 16, and I have 1 of those. I have 2 16 by 12s. So it's going to be 4 blocks down, 4 blocks across, 3 blocks down. 16 by 12 equals 4 blocks across, 3 blocks down. I have 2 of those. So I have a 16 by 12. I have 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. I mark how many I have so that later on when I go back and look at it, I can tell if I'm missing a block or not. I have 5 12 by 16s. 12 by 16 is going to be 3 blocks across, 4 blocks down. And I have 5 of them. So I'm going to make a representative block on my graph paper. So continue on making a representative block on your graph paper for every block that you have in your count sheet. After you have drawn all your blocks, your next step is to put spray glue on the back of the paper. Doesn't take a lot. The spray glue lets you move your blocks around later on in the process. So next, you're going to cut out all your blocks. I would suggest using an old pair of scissors for this because they will get sticky. This is a tough way to lay out your blocks, but it does work. You just have to be very patient. So go ahead and cut out all your blocks. You can just glue them to the side of a box or to the side of a table so you can keep track of them until you're ready to actually use them. Once you have all your squares cut out, the next step is to make an outline of the size of your quilt onto the graph paper. So begin by taking the width of your quilt, which in our case is 76 inches, and dividing it by 4, which equals 19, which means I need to count over 19 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. All right, so from there to there is the width of my quilt. You can see how small it is, and you might want to be using bigger graph paper or having more squares on your graph paper. Now let's take the length of the quilt, 88, and we're going to divide that by 4. And that equals 22. So I need to go down 22 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. There's our bottom corner. So now you can draw the outline of your quilt. Once you have the outline of your quilt, mark the size, 76 by 88. Now you are ready to start placing your blocks and moving the blocks around. Because we use spray glue on them, you can place a block and then you can move it on later on. Your design process will be the same whether you're working on a computer or with graph paper. Basically, you're going to lay the blocks out and then move them around until you have a design that's very pleasing. It can be difficult, but we'll walk you through step by step. First, put a large block in each corner. These blocks help anchor the design. If you were to use small blocks in the outside corners, they would visually fall off the quilt. Fill in the outside edges. Try to alternate the size of the blocks so that all the blocks on one side of the quilt are not the same size. Again, try to use the larger blocks first. Any block that is under an 8 by 8 is generally too small for the outside and should be reserved for the center of the quilt. Next, fill in the interior, beginning with your larger pieces. As you fill the interior, work from the larger to the smaller pieces. If you have a lot of 12 by 12 blocks, fill those in by offsetting to one another. Continue to fill in blocks until your entire interior is filled. Continue rearranging the squares until you are satisfied with your design. If the total square inches of your quilt is greater than the total square inches of your cut blocks, there will be open spaces. Keep these areas blank until you're finished with your design. There are a number of elements I try to avoid because they take away the random look of the t-shirt quilt. The first thing to avoid is having 4 corners coming together. Spend some time looking at your layout to see if you can move a few blocks around to eliminate 4 corners coming together. Next, try to avoid a long seam from side to side or from top to bottom. This visually breaks the quilt into pieces and it makes it look static. Print your drawing out onto regular office paper. Before you print, go into Print Preview to make sure your drawing looks like what you want it to look like. You may have to choose Fit to Paper so that the entire drawing fits onto one piece of paper. It's really important to redraw your map because if these little blocks fall off, you might not know what belongs there. So I suggest definitely redrawing it. And then you just keep putting your other blocks in until you have it all drawn. This will also help in your next step where we're going to color on the map. It's very difficult to color on the little pieces. I have seen quilts where people have failed to redraw their map and their top is one width and the bottom is another width, and they just kind of stretch the t-shirts to fit in. So it's important that your map is perfect before you start making your quilt. So definitely spend time doing this. If you are totally stuck, don't worry, we can help you with this step. Just visit our website and click on the Make It Yourself link. So now you have gotten through the hardest part. Yay! We are on to assigning each block to your map. Get out your coloring crayons, we're going to have fun doing this one. The quilt I'm going to lay out now is a quilt that is 48 inches wide by 56 inches tall. It's a pretty small one, and I've actually found that smaller quilts are harder to lay out than larger ones. So first I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to pull my blocks out of the way. I'm going to grab a square, and there's 0, and there's 0. Put my cursor at 0, 0. If you look down here while I'm drawing, you'll see the size increase and decrease. So there's 0, 0. Click, and then go out to 48 by 56. 48, 56. Then I'm going to use my zoom, and I'm going to look. All right, so my first block is, I have 3 16 by 16s. Left click, right click, rubber stamp. 3. 1, 2, 3. Escape. Small quilts are the most difficult to lay out, and as we go along you'll see why. Next I have 3 16 by 12s. 1, zoom, 2, 3, delete. I have 1 12 by 16. Now if you notice I put it in there, I'll only have room for 4 by something. So let's just set it over there for the time being. I have 1 16 by 8, which is good because I can put it there. I have 1 8 by 16. I have 2 12 by 12s. Rubber stamp. 1, 2. I have 1 12 by 8. I have 1 8 by 12. I have 2 12 by 4s. I have 1 8 by 8. And I have 2 8 by 4s. 1, 2. And I have a 2 4 by 8s. Skip. All right, so those are the blocks I have to work with. There were no 4 by 4s. So I'm definitely going to have some fillers. Now you might think, well, this design's good enough, but it's not. Right now you have a straight line there. When you have a quilt that's 48 inches wide, you can have a quilt that has 3 16-inch wide blocks, or is going to have 4 12 by 12 blocks. Because you have 48, it's divisible by 12, which is 4, it's divisible by 16, which is 3. Luckily, we have a lot of different size blocks in this quilt to work with. So our big area of concern is right there. And I don't like that right there. So I want to perhaps put that on the side there. And that there. That's already more interesting. Pull those pieces out. This piece is a big block. It'll take up room. This is a very easy quilt to lay out. And they're not all this easy. Getting a line there, so what do? This would definitely look better there. And then I'm going to have an odd arrangement here. So let's put that back there and think about, that'd be neat there. And if I move that there, it's kind of in the way, it's in the center. All right, that's getting a little better, but I'm gonna have a lot of small blocks up there. If I put it there, do that. I still need a big block, a block that breaks that plane there. Let's see. That needs to be up there, and this needs to be there. Pull that over there. So we're starting to get better here. This can break there. All right, not a bad design. Pretty quick and easy to lay out. They're not all that easy, but we need to put some fillers in. I want them solid. Now, as you're making fillers, you need to decide, do I want them all by 4x4s or do I want some 8x4s and 4x8s? On a small quilt, I think I will want mine to be all 4x4s. So then I need to go up and grab a second color for some of the blocks. Looking at this design, it's okay. It's not the world's best. There's a strong line here. This is really good in there. I wonder what I could do if I play with these blocks a little bit. Pull that. That breaks that line up really nice. I can put that here. You're going to have a nice big block in the center right there. That's kind of a blank block, so maybe you want to pull something up like that. And then use 4x4s down here. Sometimes it's easy just to draw another one. This isn't a bad design either. This, I think I would actually choose not to have two 4x4s in this case. I think I would go to 8x4. That breaks up that sharp corner there. Actually, I think I like this design the best, so I'm going to save this as, I'll save as, and this is for Sarah. And the summary information screen, if you're using this program, just say OK. And there's Sarah's quilt. Looks like there's something there I want to delete. All right, done with Sarah's.